Breaking news, Sean Diddy Combs was arrested in Manhattan after grand jury indictment. The music mogul has been under mounting scrutiny, obviously since this lawsuit by his former girlfriend Cassie and others. But now we have reports here. Here it is. Federal investigation was arrested in Manhattan on Monday evening after grand jury indicted him. According to a person familiar with the indictment who was not authorized to speak publicly, the indictment is sealed and the charges were not announced, but the person familiar with the prosecution said they believe Mr. Combs was being charged with racketeering and trafficking. Statement from Mr. Combs' legal team said they were disappointed with the decision to prosecute him and noted that he had been cooperative with the investigation and had voluntarily relocated to New York last week in anticipation of these charges. So I guess, Christopher, that's my first question. If they're going to go there, is that something they're going to let Diddy's team know? By the way, it's actually going to come?
Right here, because something big just happened while we were watching that to her. And that was the New York Times is reporting that Sean P. Diddy Combs has been arrested. Let me repeat Puff Daddy P. Diddy, Sean Combs has been arrested. Let me tell you what I do know, and it ain't much at this point. He was arrested in Manhattan this evening. A grand jury indicted him, according to a person familiar with the indictment, not authorized to speak publicly. The charges in the indictment are not immediately clear, but you know there's been this massive federal investigation. They raided his home in Los Angeles and his home in Miami, much of it after a civil suit from his former girlfriend, Cassie, who, by the way, he settled with in a day. And then, after that video came out showing him beating her to a living pulp in a hotel, a lot of the allegations and the last thing Cassie had actually filed against him provided, I think, some meat on the bones for the feds. But the New York Times is saying that this happened. They don't have much more information than this. We are also trying to confirm this. I can tell you that his attorney has made a statement, and let me read it to you because I think it confirms the New York Times report. Mark Agnifilo, his attorney.
Do a special show. I'm back outside. Anywhere I go, every stage I touch, I'm a feel me?
A Michigan inmate has been awarded $100 million in his civil lawsuit against infamous music mogul Sean Diddy Combs. The judgment was issued to 51-year-old Derek Lee Cardello Smith yesterday. He accuses Diddy of drugging and assaulting him.
So I took it because I had sat one down in the other room, and then I drank some more, and I stayed sitting there and began getting drowsy and started to pass out. And then Sean Combs said to me, I added a little something to it for you. I will get that from you anyway, one way or another. I then passed out. Cardello Smith claims that when he woke up, Combs admitted he assaulted him when he was unconscious.
Says we are disappointed with the decision to pursue what we believe is an unjust prosecution of Mr. Combs by the U.S. Attorney's Office. Sean Diddy Combs is a music icon, a self-made entrepreneur, a loving family man, and a proven philanthropist who has spent the last 30 years building an empire, adoring his children, and working to uplift the Black community. He is an imperfect person, but he is not a criminal. To his credit, Mr. Combs has been nothing but cooperative with this investigation. And he voluntarily relocated to New York last week in anticipation of these charges. Please reserve your judgment until you have all the facts. These are the acts of an innocent man with nothing to hide, and he looks forward to clearing his name in court. So again, that is Mark Agnifilo, the attorney for Sean Diddy Combs, but that's pretty massive news. This may be the news we've been waiting every moment to drop because not only do we know that the feds did these two massive raids on his Miami and Los Angeles mansions, but we also know that multiple lawsuits have dropped since. The lawsuit that Cassie launched with so many details, remarkable details, just put everything out there. What's really incredible about all of the different lawsuits against Sean Combs is how similar everyone's story is. Now, is that because he did the same things to all of these alleged victims? Or is it because all of these people filing suit saw the story before them and thought it made a good narrative? So why not just follow with those same details?
Happy Friday, happy Friday. Welcome to Club Love. Friday edition. I'm back outside, so I want to touch y'all every Friday.
So Diddy just took a massive L in court and was ordered to pay $100 million just because he skipped his hearing. A man named Derek Cardello Smith accused Diddy of rape and slapped Diddy with a lawsuit in Michigan. Long story short, Smith scored a whopping $100 million in a default judgment. But get this, instead of laying low, Diddy's now turning up the heat. Not only did he show up at Smith's prison to offer him hush money, but also, now that Smith's sitting on that giant judgment, Diddy's using his connections to get back at Smith. Word on the street is that Smith is now living in fear, scared for his safety after Diddy allegedly sent his people to handle things in prison. Honestly, this whole situation is wild. Cardello Smith has been making waves with his civil suits, but this case? This just blew everything out of the water, and you have to wonder, would Diddy rather lose $100 million than show up in court? What else is he hiding? Because from the looks of it, this is just the tip of the iceberg. So stay tuned, because I'm about to break this case down for you.
It is based on two actions taken by Mr. Combs himself, directly with me here. We did a live one-on-one visit in our prison visiting room. There's two meetings within the past 2 weeks with Mr. Combs on one meeting, and then a financial advisor on the other meeting on Mr. Combs' behalf. And he stated that he would make me an offer to end the case and what happened to me because of other things that he stated he has going on in his life that require his money right now, and he wants to sell everything off. And he made me a financial offer of $2.3 million to allow what happened to me to go away. And he stated that he's going to be selling his property, and under the 2005 California Civil Code 2881-2885, the creation of liens, which allows out-of-state justices and orders to cause a stop of any title transfer, property transfers in Los Angeles or any other place that he has property. He stated that he wouldn't be able to proceed with that sale. And he did it the day after I served him the suit. And he also said that he won't be filing an answer to the complaint. He said, you can find me in default or whatever. He has a better chance with default than he would with having a restraining order stopped. And I said, so you want to hide your money and stop from being quite possibly paid to me if I'm given the benefit of a judgment in my favor for what you've done to me. And he pretty much said, yeah, he goes, you know how we get
Diddy's
down.
$100 million loss. Back in August, Derek Lee Cardello Smith, who's currently locked up, managed to stop Diddy from selling off any of his mansions or major real estate assets. A judge ruled in Cardello Smith's favor, freezing Diddy's properties and blocking his team from making any real estate moves. And this is huge because Diddy's been scrambling to cover his tracks, but it looks like the walls are closing in.
If he's allowed to sell his property that he has in LA and the properties that are in his name being used and held by other people in Michigan, then it will cause me harm because I can be tied directly to those properties through loans and through other areas of investment that I did when I was out there and while in prison through money that I've sent. And if he's allowed to go through with any of the sales, I won't be able to recoup any of my monies or anything from him as a result of any possible judgment in this action, if he's allowed to proceed with it. And an injunction or a restraining order would help ensure that he's not manipulating and selling the property to avoid his responsibility in these matters here. That's what a temporary restraining order would do. It would prevent that from happening. Because it's a very serious matter. It involves a lot of money. And him selling this would help him avoid.
Here's the tea. Diddy and his legal team actually pulled up to visit Cardello Smith in jail, trying to slide him a cool $2.3 million settlement. Why? Well, according to Cardello Smith, Diddy spiked his drink and graped him at one of his infamous parties back in 1997. But here's where it gets even crazier. This meeting between Diddy and Cardello Smith happened in the detention center's visitor area, and yes, it was recorded. Diddy's name is in the visitor sign-in logs. So now, the attorneys who were there are saying that Diddy pretty much confessed to everything, and even though attorney-client privilege usually protects these conversations, that recording is being used as evidence.
Everything that you're looking at, they're all tied in together. Every part, as crazy as this seems, as outrageous as it seems, it all ties in. Every bit of it, every facet.
A man who's been in and out of prison since the 90s and is known in the Michigan criminal justice system for filing multiple lawsuits and appeals has a new target in his sights: Sean Diddy Combs. As the rapper faces legal attacks from all sides, what does this latest information mean for the disgraced rapper? Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Today we're going to introduce you to quite a character, Derek Lee Cardello Smith. He is an inmate at Ernest C. Brooks Correctional Facility out in Michigan, and this week he was granted a temporary restraining order against rapper Sean Diddy Combs, who has been in the news quite a lot.
But can we just take a moment to talk about how insane it is that after all the dirt that's come out about Diddy, he actually had the nerve to pull up to prison and meet with Cardello Smith in person? Diddy is literally drowning in lawsuits with some seriously heavy accusations hanging over his head, and yet he rolls up like it's just another business meeting. And get this, during the meeting, Diddy allegedly hit Cardello Smith with the line, "You know how we get down." Diddy clearly thought that he could just throw some money at the situation, $2.3 million, to be exact, and walk away with all this swept under the rug.
Yeah, so a lot of times they'll be in touch, the federal prosecutor will be in touch with the defense attorney to arrange for a surrender, because when you're indicted like this, you need to be hard booked. So he needs to go in, get fingerprinted, and get photographed and get booked, and then make arrangements for his release. So that would have been coordinated if they feel that there's no risk of flight. If the prosecutor believes that he might bail or commit further crimes, then they're just going to go and grab him. So now his attorney's statement says that he's relocated or has been living, I guess, in some hotel in New York or Manhattan for the last week. So it sounds like this has been going on for quite a bit. But the TMZ reporting, there was some updated reporting a little bit ago saying that they actually were planning the surrender tomorrow, Tuesday. I'm losing track of time here. What day is it? I'm sorry.
Today's Monday, Tuesday.
Monday. Okay. So they were planning on doing it Tuesday, but they moved it up to today. And it sounded like in quite a bit of a hurry, and that they also searched his hotel room. So if that reporting is correct by TMZ, that leads me to believe that the federal prosecutor or law enforcement was monitoring Diddy, felt that there was some risk that he would either flee, commit further crimes, destroy evidence, or intimidate witnesses, something like that. They said, we can't let him loose, swooped in, picked him up, hard booked him, and then also searched his hotel room for stuff. So this is a very bad start to a really awful case for him.
Yeah, that's epic. I mean, that's big. That's abnormal, I would imagine. If they have scheduled and they're all assuming all parties are being fair and doing it the way they're supposed to, yeah, you don't swoop in the night earlier, I imagine, right?
Yeah, that's really unusual, because the fact that they would have given him the heads up potentially a week ago, said, hey, come out to New York, this is happening, you're going to make arrangements, it's going to go to, I mean, they're making an appointment with this guy. And so obviously when they were doing that, they felt that he was not a risk of fleeing or committing crimes, destroying evidence, or threatening witnesses. So something radically changed today that would have, turned this whole thing upside down. So how that affects his ability to be released, and how quickly he'll be released is yet to be seen.
So he's arrested. This officially now this means, just so we're clear on what the terms are, he's arrested and now taken into federal custody. Does that traditionally mean he's going to be behind bars or like in the station? What does this typically mean when this type of thing happens?
So most of the time, especially when it's prearranged, he has already worked out the conditions for release. So that can be as simple as just saying, hey, I promise to appear at all court appearances.
This whole situation just exposes how Diddy's been able to get away with so much over the years, because who else would be bold enough to pull a stunt like this right in the middle of all the heat he's facing? However, this time it's looking real bad for him, and honestly, I don't think even all his money can save him from what's coming next. Cardello Smith went to a Michigan judge and asked for a restraining order to block Diddy from selling off any of his properties that were meant for their settlement. And the judge actually granted his request. But Cardello Smith didn't just stop with the restraining order, he also went after a default judgment against Diddy, saying Diddy didn't even bother to respond to the legal summons. And guess what? Cardello Smith just landed another huge win in court, and he actually scored that $100 million judgment against Diddy.
Stay in New York or the U.S., whatever the terms are, surrender his passport, maybe post a bond, maybe subject himself to electronic monitoring. So it would kind of be one of those or all of those things that they would have negotiated in advance. But he does have to be booked. So he's got to be booked and, taken before a magistrate and all that stuff. So that just goes with the territory. And it sounds like it was on track for him Tuesday to go in there quietly and walk out. And we've been reading the story tomorrow instead of this evening. So if he did something serious, or he's accused of doing something serious, today, let's say, then they might say, hey, we're no longer agreeable to those conditions of release, and they might have to fight before the judge as to his being released from custody.
So it's fascinating. So his team, and clearly they've known for a little while, probably more than any of us knew what was coming. I guess you are prepared for that. The grand jury. So they use the grand jury to ensure that the case is up to snuff, right? Just for people to understand, the way this is all done is they've gotten jurors to sit there. They get to plead this case pretty much in private, right? Or does Diddy's team get to witness this as well? Is this a way to, or is just a soft trial really to ensure the evidence they have will be held up based on jurors' reactions?
Sure. So it's a little confusing with the terms, but in the federal system and a serious crime like this, they typically going to start this with impaneling a grand jury. So it's not the regular type of jury that you see on TV that, 12 people or whatever sitting in a box that are pulled from public. This is sometimes a standing grand jury or a special grand jury that's impaneled for the purpose of determining whether there's probable cause to issue an indictment here. And so these folks would have been presented a case by the prosecutor. Diddy really is not having much right to have any participation in this process. And so that's just done supposedly to make sure that there's evidence that a crime has actually been committed and that he has done so sufficient to issue criminal charges and for him to be arrested or booked for it. So again, I'm oversimplifying it, but that's basically the concept. Now, certainly that's the initial charge. He'll be taken before a judge. The prosecutor can amend the charges, so they can do a superseding indictment. So the initial charges don't necessarily mean the last charges. So those might change over time. Certainly now Diddy's would come in and start asserting his defenses, and but I'm sure the prosecutor was very careful. They certainly took their time. The last time we reported on this, we were wondering what's taking so long and what are they doing behind the scenes? And they did these raids months ago, and we kind of surmised that they were putting the squeeze on witnesses and other maybe potential targets to see if they would turn evidence against Diddy. And they were going to take their time, and once they had the goods, they were going to hit him. So it sounds like that's happened. This is going to be the beginning of a potentially long saga. Those RICO and other charges that we've heard that might have been he might have been indicted for are very serious. It's not something like, Timberlake or somebody you can just say, hey, let me just take some deal and walk out with no time. That's going to be very difficult for Diddy to make a deal on that without some substantial prison time being requested of him. And if he's not thinking that is worthy, then it goes to trial.
Kim has joined the chat as well. Welcome, Kim. Thank you for helping break this for me. And Kim will be covering this on It's Kim. Make sure you're supporting her. While we have Mr. Melcher, I wanted to ask, because there's another part of this quote, and I want to get your thoughts too, Kim, but Diddy's lawyer added, this I found very telling. I hadn't seen this one yet. Diddy is an imperfect person, but he's not a criminal. To his credit, Mr. Combs has been nothing but cooperative with the investigation, relocated to New York, yada, yada. Please reserve your judgment until you have all the facts. These are the acts of an innocent man with nothing to hide, and he looks forward to clearing his name in court. I mean, it's just laughable for me to hear that, given the way he lied about Cassie, the way that he and his attorneys tried so hard to defame her, deny her, she's a liar, they're all clout chasers, etc., etc.
According to the Detroit Metro Times and official court documents, this massive award was handed down by a Illinois County Circuit Court judge on Monday. The judge had already granted a temporary restraining order against Diddy earlier, and now things are escalating fast. So here's what went down. Diddy didn't even bother to show up for the September 9th virtual hearing, and because he didn't respond or make an appearance, the court hit him with a default judgment. That basically means that because Diddy didn't defend himself in the case, Cardelo Smith automatically won the $100 million claim against him. According to the latest reports. This could end up being one of the largest payouts ever awarded to someone who's both a non-attorney and currently locked up. But let's now get into the details of what Cardelo Smith is actually alleging went down at one of Diddy's parties back in the 90s. And trust me, it's as wild and disturbing as you'd expect from the kind of stories we've been hearing about Diddy lately.